Every April, teams make promises to the future. Names are called, dreams begin, and most careers quietly fade. But in Pittsburgh, something different happens. The Steelers don't just find stars at the top of the draft, they build legends from the shadows of the board. Late rounds, overlooked prospects, even players who were never drafted at all. This franchise has turned afterthoughts into champions and turned unknown names into banners in the rafters. Today, we're counting down the 10 biggest draft steals in Steelers history, the picks nobody saw coming, and the undrafted players who proved the entire league wrong. If you love real Steelers stories and black and gold history, hit like, share this with Steelers Nation, and subscribe to Black and Gold Legacy for elite Steelers stories. All right, let's dive in. Number 10. Aaron Smith. Not every draft steal becomes a superstar. Some become something more important, a foundation. When the Steelers selected Aaron Smith in the 4th round of 1999 draft, there was no spotlight, no buzz, no expectations of stardom. He wasn't projected to be the face of a defense, but inside the building, he became one of the most valuable pieces of the championship era. Aaron Smith didn't play for headlines, he played for structure. As a defensive end in a 3-4 front, his job wasn't to chase sack totals, it was to control the line of scrimmage. He took on double teams, he set the edge, he allowed linebackers behind him to make the plays that showed up on highlight reels. That's the kind of work casual fans don't notice and coaches never stop valuing. During the Steelers' Super Bowl runs, Aaron Smith was the glue that held the front together. When he was healthy, the run defense was tougher, the pass rush was cleaner, the entire unit functioned better. You could see it when he was missing, the defense felt different. That's how you know a player matters. Draft steals aren't just about surprise stars, they're about finding players who massively outperform their draft slot. A 4th-round pick becoming a decade-long cornerstone on elite defenses, that's a steal. Aaron Smith didn't dominate headlines, he dominated his assignment, and that's why he earns the number 10 spot among the biggest draft steals in Steelers history. Number 9. Brett Keisel. By the time the 7th round arrives, most teams are gambling. Depth pieces, special teams bodies, developmental flyers. The Steelers found a pillar. Brett Keisel wasn't drafted to be a star, he was drafted to compete for a roster spot. What he became was something far more valuable, a decade-long presence on championship defenses. He played the game the Steelers way, physical, disciplined, relentless. He wasn't the flashiest edge rusher. He didn't chase stats. He chased assignments, setting the edge against the run, collapsing the pocket, absorbing blocks so others could hunt quarterbacks. During the Super Bowl years, Keisel was one of those players who did the work that made everyone else look better. When offenses tried to run away from pressure, he closed lanes. When quarterbacks stepped up, he was there to squeeze space. And he did it for years. That's what makes this a draft steal. A 7th-round pick becoming a long-term starter on multiple Super Bowl teams is rare. A 7th-round pick becoming a leader in the locker room and on the field is even rarer. Keisel's legacy isn't one moment, it's consistency, it's durability, it's championship reliability. The Steelers didn't just find a player late in the draft, they found a warrior who helped define their defensive identity for an entire era. That's a draft steal. Number 8. Greg Lloyd. By the 6th round, most teams are searching for role players. The Steelers found fear. Greg Lloyd entered the league without hype, without headlines, and without expectations of becoming the face of a defense. But once he put on the black and gold, it didn't take long for opponents to understand something. This man wasn't here to play nice. Lloyd became the emotional tone setter of the Steelers' defense in the early 1990s. He didn't just rush the passer, he hunted quarterbacks. He didn't just tackle, he punished. His presence alone changed how offenses designed game plans. That's what makes this a true draft steal. Sixth-round picks aren't supposed to become defensive leaders. They aren't supposed to become Pro Bowl caliber edge rushers. They aren't supposed to strike fear into entire divisions. Lloyd did all three. His impact wasn't just statistical, it was psychological. Quarterbacks sped up their internal clocks. Offensive coordinators slid protections toward him. Running backs chipped him before releasing into routes. That kind of respect is earned. The Steelers didn't just find a contributor in the 6th round. They found the edge of their defense, the attitude that told the league Pittsburgh wasn't going to be easy to play against anymore. Lloyd outplaned his draft slot by miles. That's why he earns the number 8 spot among the biggest draft steals in Steelers history. Number 7. Antonio Brown. Every draft has surprises. The Steelers found a shockwave. Antonio Brown entered the league as a 6th-round pick, a small school receiver without the hype of first-round stars. He wasn't projected to be the future of an offense. He wasn't handed a starting job. He earned it. From special team snaps to limited routes, Brown built his way into the lineup. And once he earned trust, he transformed into one of the most productive wide receivers the franchise and the league has ever seen. At his peak, Brown wasn't just good, he was unguardable. Route running so sharp it broke coverage schemes. Body control that turned tight windows into completions, game speed that punished even small mistakes by defenses. What makes this a draft steal isn't just production, it's value. A 6th-round pick becoming the centerpiece of an offense for nearly a decade is the definition of outplaying draft position. The Steelers found a franchise-altering weapon deep in the draft. And when the moments got big, Brown delivered. Late-game catches, third-down conversions, playoff performances where coverage tightened and separation vanished. Brown thrived when defenses knew he was the target. Draft steals are about finding greatness where no one else was looking. The Steelers didn't just find a receiver in the 6th round, they found a generational peak. That's why Antonio Brown earns the number 7 spot among the biggest draft steals in Steelers history. Number 6. Jack Lambert. 2nd-round picks are expected to contribute. They're not expected to become the identity of a dynasty. Jack Lambert wasn't drafted to be a symbol, he became one. With no teeth in the front of his helmet and fire in his eyes, Lambert brought an edge to the Steelers that couldn't be coached. He didn't just play linebacker, he patrolled the middle of the field with authority. Tight ends learned to brace. Running backs learn to protect themselves. What makes Lambert a draft steal isn't that he was selected in the 2nd round, it's that he delivered 1st-round impact for an entire era. He became the heartbeat of the steel curtain defense, the voice in the huddle, the enforcer between the hashes. In playoff moments and Super Bowl runs, Lambert's presence changed how opponents approached the middle of the field. He diagnosed plays instantly, filled gaps with violence, and brought leadership that elevated everyone around him. The Steelers didn't just draft a linebacker in 1974, they drafted the personality of their defense. 2nd-rounders don't usually become all-time faces of a franchise. Lambert did. That gap between draft slot and historical impact is what makes him a true draft steal and why he earns the number 6 spot on this list. Number 5. Hines Ward. 3rd-round picks are expected to contribute. They're not expected to become the emotional center of a franchise. Hines Ward arrived in Pittsburgh without superstar hype. He wasn't drafted to be the face of the offense. In fact, early in his career, he played multiple roles just to find a place on the field. But once Ward found his role, he transformed the identity of Steelers football on offense. He wasn't just a receiver, he was an attitude. Ward made his name in the toughest areas of the field, over the middle, in traffic, with defenders waiting to deliver punishment, and he kept running those routes anyway. late in games, in the playoffs, in cold weather battles where catching the ball hurt. That's what makes this a draft steal. A third-round pick turning into a franchise icon, a Super Bowl MVP, and the emotional leader of an offense is rare. Ward didn't just outperform his draft slot, he redefined what the Steelers expected from the wide receiver position. His blocking became legendary, his toughness became contagious, his clutch catches became culture. The Steelers didn't just find a productive player in the third round, they found the heart of their offense for an entire era. That's why Hines Ward earns the number 5 spot among the biggest draft steals in Steelers history. Number 4. James Harrison. Every draft ends with names that never get called. Most of those names disappear. James Harrison became a warning. He entered the league in 2002 without a draft slot, without guarantees, without a spotlight. In fact, he was cut, released, and overlooked early in his career. For a while, the league didn't think he belonged. Pittsburgh thought otherwise. Once Harrison finally earned his opportunity, he didn't just contribute, he detonated. He became one of the most feared edge rushers of his era. Offensive coordinators built protection schemes around him. Quarterbacks rushed throws because of him. Entire game plans shifted because of his presence. That's not development, that's transformation. What makes Harrison one of the biggest draft steals in Steelers history isn't just that he went undrafted, it's what he became after. Defensive Player of the Year, Super Bowl hero, the emotional embodiment of Steelers defense in the modern era. And when the moments were biggest, Harrison was at his most destructive. He didn't shy away from pressure, he weaponized it. Undrafted players aren't supposed to become the centerpiece of a championship defense. Harrison didn't just break that rule, he rewrote it. That's why James Harrison earns the number 4 spot among the biggest draft steals in Steelers history. Number 3. Mike Webster. Dynasties aren't built only by stars, they're built by anchors. When the Steelers selected Mike Webster in the 5th round of the 1974 draft, they weren't drafting a headline, they were drafting a possibility. No one expected a 5th-round center to become the backbone of an offense that would dominate an era. Webster became that backbone. At center, there's no glory, no highlight reels, just responsibility. Calling protections, reading fronts, taking on elite nose tackles in the middle of championship battles. And Webster mastered all of it. During the Steelers' dynasty years, when the defense was earning the headlines, Webster was quietly winning wars in the trenches. He made the offense function. He stabilized the pocket. He turned chaos into structure. That's what makes this a draft steal. 5th-round picks aren't supposed to become Hall of Fame linemen. They aren't supposed to start for a decade. They aren't supposed to be the communication hub of a championship offense. Mike Webster did all of it. His consistency allowed the Steelers to trust their run game. His toughness allowed quarterbacks to stand in the pocket longer. His leadership allowed young linemen to grow around him. The Steelers didn't just find a starter in the 5th round. They found the heart of their offense for an entire era. That's why Mike Webster earns the number 3 spot among the biggest draft steals in Steelers history. Number 2. L.C. Greenwood. By the time the 10th round arrives, teams aren't searching for starters, they're filling out rosters. The Steelers found a dynasty cornerstone. L.C. Greenwood entered the league without the pedigree of a top pick. A 10th round selection isn't supposed to become one of the defining defensive ends in NFL history, especially not on a team that would go on to build one of the greatest defenses ever assembled. But Greenwood didn't just make the team, he made history. With his gold shoes flashing off the edge, Greenwood became one of the signature pass rushers of the Steel Curtain era. He wasn't the loudest name on the defense, but he was one of the most consistently disruptive forces. What makes this a draft steal of the highest order is the gap between expectation and reality. A 10th round pick becoming a Hall of Fame level player? That's not just good scouting, that's a franchise-altering find. In playoff football, when quarterbacks tried to escape the pocket, Greenwood collapsed edges. When protection slid away, he punished mistakes. He gave the steel curtain teeth on the outside. The Steelers didn't just draft a late-round contributor, they drafted a pillar of a dynasty in the 10th round. That's why L.C. Greenwood earns the number 2 spot among the biggest draft steals in Steelers history. Number 1. Donnie Shell. The draft ends. Lights go off. Phones stop ringing. Dreams quietly fade. For most players, undrafted means forgotten. For Donnie Shell, undrafted meant unstoppable. In 1974, the Steelers built one of the greatest draft classes in NFL history. Legends were selected, futures were secured, and somehow they still found Donnie Shell after the draft ended. No pick, no ceremony, no expectations. What followed was one of the most improbable rises in NFL history. Shell didn't just make the roster, he became the backbone of the secondary during a dynasty. 4 Super Bowl championships, decade-long dominance, a career built on intelligence, positioning, and violence at the point of contact. Shell wasn't flashy, he was surgical. Quarterbacks avoided his side of the field. Receivers learned to protect themselves crossing the middle. Game plans changed because of where Donnie Shell lined up. That's the definition of value. Undrafted players aren't supposed to become all-pro defenders. They aren't supposed to anchor championship secondaries. They aren't supposed to reach the Hall of Fame. Donnie Shell did all 3. The Steelers didn't just find a player after the draft, they found a legend. That's why Donnie Shell stands alone at number 1, the greatest draft steal in Steelers history. Dynasties aren't built only in the first round. They're built in late rounds, in quiet war rooms, in names most fans barely remember on draft night. Great franchises don't just draft talent, they recognize hunger. The Steelers have turned overlooked prospects into legends, turned doubt into dominance, and turned no expectations into championship DNA. That's what separates a good franchise from a historic one. If you felt this journey through forgotten gems and hidden greatness, make sure you hit like, share this with a true Steelers fan, and subscribe for more elite Steelers stories every week. This channel is where Steelers history lives. The stories beyond the box score, the moments beyond the highlights, the legends beyond the headlines. The next story is already loading. Until then, respect the grind, respect the legacy, and we'll see you in the next one.